very excited to share with you, everyone, what we are working on with Project Unox. Myself, Peter, and Marit, we will share what we are up to. So it's a long story to cover, but we'll try to keep it brief. We'll run through this. I'll do the introduction, followed by Marit, and then Peter. We'll have a demo, and hopefully we'll have questions at the end. But if there are questions in the middle, use the chat so we can also reply, right? So Project Unox. So I guess Ayrton soup is familiar to most of you. I was corrected this morning that Unox is more known for sausages. But anyway, soup works good for the analogy because what we are building here is basically a soup with all these ingredients: GitOps, Backstage, Kubernetes, developer portal platform. So let's see what we are up to. So what was the vision? So we started this 4 months ago. A small team sat together and thought we should build something. We should build something with this, which is a solution showcase and a self-service platform, which developers. So developers is in the middle, in the center, and how to enable developers with cloud-native technologies using the best-of-breed techniques. So that was our starting goal. And then you may ask, what is a platform in this context? Because it could mean many things. So in this context, it's basically in an organization, you got a lot of tools, technologies, which developers are using to build and release stuff. And here it's basically a collection of all these tools, which are glued together, maintained by maybe one or more platform teams. And the core thing here, again, is developers. And we want to enable a self-service path, and we call it a golden path for developers. So they can basically follow this path, basically be very quick in building stuff.
Yep. May I interrupt you with a question?
Sure.
Okay, so it's a cloud-native development accelerator.
You could call it that, yes.
Okay.
Good way to put it. Yeah. But it's about a platform, and it's got more things than just one tool or two. It's bringing everything together. And maybe we should not even call it platform. I would even call it developer enablement, because that's what it is. But for I think it's good to just keep one good term to go forward. The big question we keep getting is why we should do this, and this is also something we asked ourselves in the beginning. Well, there's a number of things to answer this why, but I would maybe pick one big reason we think it is. And basically what you see here in this picture is the CNCF landscape. I guess some of you are familiar with this. And this kind of represents where many organizations are at this moment. Kind of splurge of tools, a lot of teams which are trying to do different things, a lot of the experimentations going on. DevOps is already in a different stages of implementation. And then you run into this complexity. And this is a bit of an overload for developers. And when you are a new developer coming into the company, getting onboarded, for example, that process takes. You need to get access to all these systems. You need to have. So this is the kind of problem that we kind of address with this project. This is one of the things. So bringing everything together under one kind of umbrella. And two things which I think improve with this approach to build a platform. One is speed, and the other is standardization. Basically, you have a streamlined process for development. That means your developers are able to build stuff faster, so the speed. And then you are building an interface, which is very common across all your products, and a bit of standardization. So that kind of brings, you can apply rules everyone can adhere to, and that brings about standardization. And if you do this across all your workflows in the organization, if you apply the standardization across all the workflows, that leads to cost benefits to the organization.
Nothing about the developer itself.
Well, it's about developer autonomy. Yeah, so they can do things faster, and because it's standardized, they can find their way easier. So it's kind of goes together with this.
Yeah, I would mention it.
That is, yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, but it's definitely all about the developer enablement.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other reasons why we should do this, but there is a trend report which we have released last year, I think this year, and there's a lot of nice articles in there. I recommend reading this one on building internal development platforms, and there I basically go through the trend, but also with some there's some nice numbers from Gartner and stuff, so you can read it. But basically, we are not doing this because this is a buzzword or this is a hype. We truly believe that this is where we are evolving towards. DevOps is evolving towards this. So that's definitely the reason. And we already see adopters using a different level of adoption. Albertine, for example, already implemented internal platform development platforms. You guys, Vodafone, Ziggo are looking into it, and we are talking to multiple other customers. They have a team internally. We are also looking at Backstage to use it, a bit of dog fooding, and so yeah, there's a lot of adoption going on. So with that, a quick look at the architecture or the building blocks, and what you see here is basically what the CNCF, the Cloud Native Foundation, thinks should be a platform, and what you see here is the capabilities of a platform and the platform interfaces and the building blocks that go into it. This is also work in progress, but we adopted this to make give our own baseline. And what we did is, to each of these capabilities, we try to map cloud native tooling, which we think we will use in this project. So what you can see here, for example, the computer network, we use Azure, Kubernetes. Source code is in GitHub. We use Helm for package management, Argo CD, and for the interfaces, you can see that we use Backstage. So we will go more into this in a bit. But basically, this is our building blocks. What we also try to represent in this picture here is, probably you're familiar with the DevOps toolchain picture. We gave a spin on it to make it cloud native version of it. And what you see here is, again, we use Docker to build our applications. We use GitHub projects to plan stuff. And through the whole life cycle, I'm not going to the details, but these are the tools we are using, and some of the tools we are also evaluating. For example, Open Policy Agent, Elastic, Kubescape. This is in our roadmap, so we will build this in as we go.
Interesting to learn what kind of discussions you had internally that caused a selection of these components and not others.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, we had quite some discussion.
At the same time, we also made quickly decisions, eh?
Yeah.
And that was also to keep the pace in it, and I think we truly chose for now the right tooling.
May I add another question? For instance, our partners, they also have opinionated views on best practices. For instance, from the Google, Azure, well, every partner has an opinionated view. And now you come with another opinionated view, right? What might be interesting is to maintain the linkage. So to maintain, Google has a very opinionated view, right, on certain things, and now you deviate from that view in some way. So that might be an interesting question to preempt, to say, you know, vendors say this, we have thought about it as well, and perhaps have something to contribute here.
But obviously, so this is, let's say, the best practice that we think in this cloud native and can be plugged in every cloud provider. And of course, you can do all this nice opinionated customization surrounding it. That's the beauty of this.
What I'm saying, it is not the end result that necessarily matters. It is the discussions and the ideation that got you to the end result, which is the interesting conversation to latch on to. So you now present the end results, but maybe it's good to also preserve a bit of that discussion.
We will go into a bit of that when Marit is talking.
We definitely will.
So definitely.
Awesome.
And this is the team. Super proud of these guys. We together, and it's a team which we come together, and not everyone is always engaged, but it's a self-driven team. So we are between our assignments working on this.
You forgot to add Victor.
We have a new member yesterday, so we have Victor, and he should be in here as well. But we are
Symmetry in the street.
Would screw up the image.
Sorry, Victor.
But we are self-organizing, very cross-functional. Everyone has their own skills, also opinions, but we are converging over time. So that's basically what it is.
And it's cross-pillar.
It's cross-pillar. Also collaborating and very customer-focused. How does this benefit Devo team? We have a solution showcase already. We built a lot of expertise doing this, a lot of the tooling, a lot of the processes. So we already are building it. So that's definitely a game. Cross-pillar, a lot of fun. Actually, we were talking about it. It's discovering everyone, others, learning from each other, and a lot of fun. So that's also nice. Inner source working model. I think this is a great way to fuel innovation. Inner source, I think I can give a full talk about it, but maybe another day. But
I'll plan
it. Yes. So also probably the first. I'm not sure, but the first inner source project in Devo team, and we got a lot of marketing content that we are kind of producing as we go. So a lot of benefits. But it's not just benefits. We also face challenges, and the technical challenges are there. But I think the most difficult ones are the non-technical type. Obviously, running an inner source project is a first for us. It presents some unique challenges. I think Marit will also touch on that. Commitment and funding. Again, everyone is working on this on their own interest. So in the beginning, it was hard to find commitment and funding. We are getting better at it as we go. And the last one, getting across the finishing line. This is something the first day we sat together and said to ourselves, we should get this project to a finish line, because we see a lot of projects sometimes not getting internal projects, I would say. We agreed that we'll have a product owner who will basically keep us on our toes, have a roadmap in place, and keep us.
So the finish line is defined. You know what the finish line is.
We have a roadmap. Today is actually kind of a grand reveal. So we were working towards the MVP. We have the MVP now, and we do have it's work in progress. So we have a roadmap.
MVP in production? Almost.
No.
We can do a race. Who is first?
But with that said, I'll hand it over to Marit.
Yes. And I'll first start with that it's great being a product owner of this team, because there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm, ideas. We have a very big backlog because there's ideas coming everywhere. So that's great to start off with. So how we work, I just put some quick markers. We do product management because in the end, we are delivering a product, which is the solution showcase, of course. There is a finish line, but it's never done, is the best description, because I think we can include so many things here to keep it going. Like Gopal just said, we work with the inner source So we have a bunch of repos, which I will dive into. We work together. We have our group of maintainers, and we'll dive a bit into later how we want to make that bigger for the whole of Devo team. It's very collaborative. So we have a chat. There's a lot of things happening in the chat.
Even on nighttime.
At nighttime, even in the weekend, especially right before Tech Thursday, there's a lot happening to get everything there. And we do a lot of reviewing and checking, asking questions. Why did you do it that way? Does that make sense? Is there a way to improve for next time? Can we do it? Can we do better? It's a growing process as a team, I would say, and we are getting better at it. So just quickly, how do we keep overview? Dev team has just moved to GitHub's themes, is the best word. So we have all the perks of GitHub now. We don't do sprints as in the real Scrum way, but we have a board with stories in their right place. Everyone can add to the backlog. We usually talk about, okay, does this make sense to do now or later? The most important row here is the review. Nothing ever passes without getting reviewed. And it can be that the story doesn't have a PR because it's something functional, but at least someone else checks that it makes sense. For example, Google Chat notifications, that works as we want it. This is also, it's great from GitHub to work this way. There's some tabs here. You can also make your roadmaps here and your milestones. Gives great overviews. I also can have a talk about that, John, if you need more. It's really cool. What we have quite a lot of repos. If anyone was in Devo Team NL, you would see a lot of Unox popping up. We have our queen, I would say, queen repo, no kings here, queen, which is Unox Home, which contains architecture, way of working, documentation about the general project. What are we doing? Why are we doing what we're doing? It's not fully done yet. It's never fully done. Some topics we still need to dive into. What are our decisions there? But it's the starting point for the whole project, and also it contains the vision. It's a good overview.
So these are tech docs that you put in Backstage? Eventually,
yes. Not yet. But yes, that's the goal, yeah. We have one first repo, so that is the AKS infra. There was already a base of this made by AMP Cloud unit with the AKS deployment for another project. So what we did is we just cloned that and developed it further for our use case. That deploys Argo CD as well. So it's based on Terraform, first of all. So in there, it also deploys Argo CD. We have our Argo CD repo. Their links to Helm charts can be found. And we decided that the actual applications will also contain the Helm chart there. So we have one sample application, was made by Amresh. That is the weather app. We made it the Unox weather app, but actually it already existed and it's just the weather app. We made a Helm chart for that, which is then also linked to the Argo repo. And we have, of course, the Backstage repo, which a lot of work was done by Peter and Andres, a lot of PRs and commits happening, which is, I have to say, it is linked to the Argo repo, but we did not fully manage to get it to work. We are almost there. 1 centimeter.
What's the issue?
It's time.
Time. We know how to do it. We just didn't have the time to get it.
I managed to get it 99.9% working yesterday evening at 12, and then I was fed up.
So almost. That's the next step. We have then, this is also from the Unox Home, we have another architecture overview. I'll shortly go through it. It's just, we use Azure for our infrastructure, which is deployed via GitHub Actions pipeline. So the Terraform plan, apply, and destroy, which we don't use yet, but it's there. It also deploys Argo, which is our deployment tool. All of that is, of course, in Git. Everything comes from Git. We have the weather app repo, which is then also making an image and putting it in the GitHub registry. So for now, we're using the internal GitHub registry. We're talking about maybe some other ones, but for now, this works, which is also done via GitHub Actions. And then via our CD, which is Argo, we deploy both the weather app and in a day Backstage. So this is our whole flow. We have more pictures, and if anyone has questions about this, you can always ask us. We also have some challenges, which Gopal talked about the non-technical, but we also have some technical challenge. We had some issue with Argo CD versions, which we deployed one to Terraform, and in Argo there was another one, and it breaks Argo itself when you are in, so it's not a great setup. We changed it. We had some issues with the DNS, which is now working. And I think the main thing we do, and I think a lot of us techies do, is thinking things are easy, but they are not that easy. It makes sense, and once you're working on it, it's not going that well, or you forget step C in the whole alphabet.
Or you have silly stuff that Visual Studio Code has caching issues. I'm thinking that you write a file away and then it still remains as the old, and then you spend like half a day and then done.
Yeah. So it always takes a bit more time, but I think it's also the fun part of our job, to be honest. And troubleshooting, figuring out what was this, why did this not work. And now we go on to Backstage.
Cool. A few extra minutes.
Yeah, I tried my best.
Yeah, so I don't have a lot of fancy slides. As you may know, Mike, I'm not known for making lots of slides, so I'll just show the two I have, and then I'll demo Backstage.
This is one of the two, right?
This is one of three, I think.
I like it.
So just a general overview of what is Backstage. I'm pretty sure maybe some people in the call have never even looked at it. A lot of people in the room, I think, know more or less what it is. But I'm just going to read what it is from here, which is a quote I found, is that Backstage is a centralized platform for development teams that streamlines processes, facilitates collaboration, and provides quick access to resources. And as Gopal mentioned, and as I think Meredith has mentioned, this will then speed up your development process. And I think a term they always use is that happy developers make happy code. So that makes just makes everybody happy.
One quick question: is it solely Backstage only for developers, or is it also for?
That's what I'm going to get to next.
Okay.
So what isn't Backstage? It's not just for engineers and developers. So it's also for architects, product owners, maybe even marketing might be interested to see what people are working on.
Even marketing.
Yeah,
Even
even
marketing.
but it's open for everybody to use. Although it is built with a focus on developers, it's not strictly for developers. So it's open for everybody.
So what would a product owner use it for?
Maybe they want to make sure that they have all of their metadata for all of their applications on there. Maybe they want to make sure that the ownership is correct, that they own everything that's on there. And I think it just gives them, maybe it's not so much in smaller companies, but maybe in a bigger company, if you're a product owner of many things, it's nice to have something where you can kind of see, this is what I own, and this is what belongs to me.
One thing we are excited about is to see the dependencies, for instance, of who is consuming which service, which is natively in Backstage if you set the scaffolder up right. So that's something that we.
And I see some people thinking it's just a front end for a lot of tools that is easy to have one front end, but it's a lot more than that.
Yeah. So the second point is it's not just an automation tool, because these are actual questions that I've actually got from people, or that people assumed, as they said, oh, so it's just an automation tool. Where it's not, it facilitates automation. So it helps you create repositories with best practices. We're using it at Vodafone Ziggo, for example, to maybe register a product on IT Manager, which is where something everybody has to do.
Companies CMDB.
Yeah, but it's not built strictly with that in mind. It's just another part that's on it. And it's not a replacement for other development tools. So Backstage isn't coming in to replace your entire stack. It is, in essence, it can replace some tools, but it is a layer on top of those tools to try and bring them all together. so that you don't have to open 17 different tools if you want to check different things. You should just be able to check them all in Backstage. I think, yeah. Now for the demo. So I have some time and probably some time for questions. So we'll probably go over briefly the software catalog, some software templates, some plugins, and tech docs. Just on this now. So assuming you don't have a sign-in page, you can have a sign-in page. Once you're past the sign-in page, this is kind of your home page or where you land. And this tells you immediately what you own. So these are the things that I own because I am part of the Unox maintainers. But I can also see, for example, and thanks to Eric and mCloud guys, they let me commit a load of stuff to their repos. I can also see what everybody else owns. So I could see what mCloud owns if we had more other teams that would let us commit stuff. You'd see them on here as well and what they have. So let's say, for example, if I wanted to go, oh, what are mCloud doing? I can see, okay, they have this Azure Playground. I can go and view the source code, which will open their repo here. There's nothing secret in here. I can see their pull requests if they had any, or they have one here. And this is where the tech docs would live, but we'll get to that in a second. But let's say that I'm a new developer. Maybe I've just joined Unox maintainers. As soon as I log in, I can say, okay, well, my team owns this. It owns Backstage. Again, I can see all the CI/CD. I can see the pipelines. I can rerun them if I need to. I can see the pull requests. We don't have any at the moment. This one, it will depend on the resource, and this is something that Mike mentioned as well. It can show you that maybe Backstage depends on something behind it or on a different resource. It will be listed here. And then I can also see the documentation for it, and this is tech docs. So I can keep the documentation with the component, so I don't have to go and find the Confluence page, wherever that is, or whatever network share somebody's hiding it on, or wherever they want to store the documentation. And this is customizable, as in this is just as code. This is stored in your repo as code, and you can add multiple documents here, and it's essentially like having a Confluence inside of Backstage.
And if you have a Confluence, you can also plug it in.
You can also plug it in. You can also, so what you would do in the overview here is one approach to do it is you have your links card here, and you could put in a link to the Confluence page here as well. So again, it's not meant to replace Confluence. It's just meant.
Also, there is a Confluence plugin being developed, right?
Yeah.
Famous guy.
But I think
Yeah.
I don't know how far along that is.
It's not completely into it now.
Is there also feature tracking or roadmap following components for release notes, for example?
For Backstage,
Yeah.
the maintainers keep a roadmap and.
So I mean for the product that you're developing, right?
Yeah, I don't think so by default, but I'll have to check. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure by default. Yeah.
I think that depends, I think, on where you want to keep your release notes.
Yeah.
Correct. Also, yeah.
If you kept them in the repo, you could probably put them on here. Yeah, you could put them on here in the tech docs part, indeed.
It's also nice to see the relation part on the side.
Yeah, and this is something I'm going to get into next as well quickly. So if again I'm a new person, I can see that this owns this, and if I click on this, I then go directly into the team. I can see Aston. I think this is actually from that quote you said earlier. We do these things not because they are easy, but because we thought they were going to be easy. So these are all the Unox maintainers. So I can see who I'm working with. I can see, okay, we own 3 websites, which are these 3. And then I can also, I think, if I view the graph, this is a bit.
Great.
So this is our entire, basically, GitHub graph. And I can see here, so I can say that the Unox maintainers are these people and own this component, Backstage. But I can also see, and I'm glad this was there because I didn't do it. So Vignesh from the Unox maintainers also is part of the Tekton project. And I can see that he works on both projects here. And then it gives you a nice map of Marco Pavone is on the Robin Radar and other things like this, which is a nice way to figure out who's working on what and what they're doing. So then we have again the tech docs, which has its own little plugin on the side. So this is where all of the tech docs would live. If I just filtered by all, I could see everybody's documentation for everything and who owns it. But I can also just filter on what I own.
Is there some kind of role-based access control on it that I can I always see everything, or is that?
There is a role-based, there is an RBAC plugin by Spotify, which you can buy. Otherwise, you have to create your own permissions, which is, can be tricky. But there's no default permissions. Everybody in Backstage can do anything unless you change it.
There's one basic setup that we have now that you can not delete stuff when you are that you only can delete stuff when you're an owner. That's really the minimal. So
moving on to the next part, which I think is pretty cool, is let's say that I'm a new developer and I've come into the company and I get told, can you just go and make us this React app? Usually you'd probably have to go to GitHub, you'd have to check, okay, what packages are we using, what versions are we using, how does the project layout look like? What this does, it gives me just a nice template. And let's see if this will work.
last demo you gave, Peter, then didn't work.
Yeah.
Right. Put on the pressure now.
Yeah.
Then we got so many cosplay, right?
He's lowering expectations, right?
Yeah.
So
It's gonna work.
I can choose an owner, so I'm going to put it as myself. The Unox maintainers own this.
So this automatically registers it also then to the software component. Yeah.
So this belongs to Devo team.
Okay.
No. And the name of the repository will be delete. Delete. So fingers crossed.
Does this one also include the whole infra for your cloud setup and everything that you deploy? It can deploy directly a Hello World, or?
No, this is just a really basic.
It's just a
So
repository.
I get two results from this. So first, what it does is it fetches a skeleton which is written in Ginger, which I'm not sure if people know about. Maybe you do. So this is kept. So for your guys' info, you can do this either two ways. You can keep your templates inside your repo with Backstage. But it doesn't really make a lot of sense because if you want to update it or change it, you have to redeploy the app. So we create a separate repo outside and point to these templates statically. So when you update the template, it will then just pick up and it's an updated template. So it will fetch the skeleton and template. It will publish it to GitHub, and then it will register it inside of Backstage. And then I get these two links here and some info saying, oh, it's done. And I can click here and it will take me to the repository, and I can click here and it will open it in Backstage. So it's automatically registered it into Backstage, and then I can see my repository here with all the layout. It's got all the everything in it that you would need. Oops. What is this one? Even a README. And you can, for example, if you wanted to, I don't think it does it in this template, you could also make it register the tech docs back into Backstage. So not only would you have your repo, but you could also have your documentation already registered in there to say, maybe if it's a new thing, say, hey, make sure you do this, make sure you register this. So this is now ready to just pull and run. So
One question I have that I forgot myself. Can you incorporate the tech docs inside this repo and read it out from there, or does it have to be a separate repo? Doesn't
no,
it?
the tech docs should live in the repo
exactly.
with the data. And then I think if I go back here, it appears now I own it. It's under here. And I think then we can move on to, so this is just a quick one about plugins. I also will, after this, I will show where you get them. So Backstage is super customizable. There's loads of open source plugins that you can just directly import. Some are open source, but they have a paid version, which require license keys. But you can also create your own plugins, and this is why I think it's so powerful. But this plugin is just a Bazaar plugin. So just as an example, what it does, I won't go through the full workflow, but let's say that would have been very nice for this project actually, because on here I could say, hey, Project Unox, the description, we're going to deploy Backstage, we can have a proposed time, who's responsible for it, which team it belongs to, and then I can post that on here, and then people can register their interest in this project, and you can create like a team going. So it's the whole the whole point I think I'm getting behind this is that Backstage is really just to try and bring everybody together, have that one single pane of glass where you don't have to worry about, oh, now I need to go to this tool and that tool, and now I need to speak to this person. It should all just be here. Then you have the tech radar, and this we didn't have much time to actually properly do. So this is all just default data, but it gives you an idea of what your IT landscape, I think would be the word, looks like, and what's happening a lot inside your org. So are people using a lot of TypeScript? Are people using a lot of JavaScript? Should we adopt it? And it gives you kind of like a little map of.
It's really nice
It gives you
because
an
it's a
idea.
super well-known visualization, right? And it does it out of the box. It's really nice.
I think I have 4. I think. Oh yeah, there's 2 more slides. Sorry, I know Gopal's reaching over. So
No more slides from
Yeah,
Peter.
not my slides. So maybe we can do those slides, and then we have like 3 minutes for questions.
We can stretch it a bit. Don't worry.